Welcome back to the Midnight Gospel, where we fall asleep into dreaming of being there in our favorite Bible stories. Tonight, we begin with the story of Nicodemus and his nighttime visit from John chapter 3. These aren't sermons. They're stories retold slowly to help your body rest and your soul come home back to God. There's nothing you need to do, no note-taking. No trying to make sense of anything here. You're in a safe place, a small, lamplit room between the waking world and sleep, where it's enough just to be present, even if you barely hear the words. Tonight, I'll tell you about a man named Nicodemus, who stepped out into the quiet streets after everyone else had drifted to sleep. He walked through the hush, cloak pulled close, sandals soft on the stone, wondering if anyone else might be awake. In a gentle house he found someone waiting, a borrowed light, a steady voice. As Nicodemus sat down, the heavy thoughts he carried loosened. There was no rush here. No one was asking for answers, just small questions, asked and left to sit like bread left to rise. Every gentle word made the darkness feel less empty, more like a place where presence is enough. This video was made to help you drift to sleep while drawing near to something holy. You're welcome just as you are, even tired, even unsure. Let your breathing slow. Let your mind notice the ordinary details, the smell of oil on the lamp, the hush of late hours, the gentle shuffle of someone else at peace in the same room. Even if you fall asleep before the end, the story will keep walking with you. You don't have to listen closely. Just let it settle into your breath and give yourself permission to rest. Some mornings begin so quietly, you almost forget they started at all. Nicodemus did not expect anything from this new day. The cloth covering him was plain and a little rough, but familiar. He lay still for a moment longer, listening to the hush that comes before the world really wakes up. There was a pale glow just beneath his eyelids, the kind of light that doesn't flood a room but seeps in slow, like water through a crack under the door. He turned his head and noticed the edge of the fabric where it met his cheek soft, with the coolness of stone beneath. He breathed in and let the air settle in his chest, cool and gentle. It carried the faintest hint of last night's ashes, and maybe bread someone was already baking. Stone ovens sighing awake down the street. The city was still. Only the stray sound of sandal straps in a distant alley, a cup set down, a door creaking as someone remembered the day had to begin. Nothing hurried here. Even the dust, floating quietly in a shaft of new light, did not seem to race. He watched the motes hang in the sunlight, letting his eyes trace their slow drift. He waited for any feeling, hunger, purpose, a word to say, but none came, and that was all right. His hands rested on the blanket. He listened to the simple silence, the gentle pause before the next thing was needed. One sparrow, bold enough to break the hush, chirped once from outside. Just the once, then quiet again. Nicodemus pulled the blanket closer around his shoulders, noticed the way it caught in the bend of his elbows. He watched his own breath make a small fog in the morning chill. It felt like patience, that empty room. Like the greatest thing he could do was wait and notice that this was enough. Let this moment stretch. He studied the dim corners where the lamp had burned down, the spots of soot, the fold of a spare cloak he'd used to muffle the window. Nothing was out of place. Nothing needed fixing. He remembered the slow moving of sleep and let himself stay part of that quiet, even as awakening nudged at the edge of his thoughts. The city's noises arrived. One by one, merchants' wheels, soft voices beneath the window, the low call of someone tending animals. Still, the hush of early morning held him, as if it wished to delay the day's demands just a little longer. Even this silence is holy. The world outside was arranging itself in soft piles of sunlight and shade. Nicodemus nudged his legs free, feeling the weight of the cloth rubbing over his skin. He brushed a spot of dust from his sleeve, even though it hardly mattered. He found himself waiting for nothing, feeling almost hidden inside the gentle beginning. He asked for nothing and still felt full. Let your breath repeat itself. Let the cool air touch your face. There is time enough for what must come, for now the slow waking is its own kind of grace. My steps were slow tonight, slower than usual maybe, but no one was there to notice. There's something quiet about walking at this hour. The hush of the air, the way each footfall echoes on smooth stone. My sandals, a little loose at the heel, made that soft scrape I only hear when the market is closed and the streets belong to shadows. At the doorway the clay jar sat waiting, still cool from dusk, heavy with its own memories. I curled my fingers around the rim, feeling where the clay is rough and where the years have made it smooth. The jar's weight pulled me gently back down to earth. Even breathing seemed slower here, in the small, safe tasks that no one tells stories about. Every step out into the night stretched time a little more. Dust rose, whisper-light, with each careful move. The world narrowed to the path. I didn't rush. The work didn't mind the pause, and neither did I. My palms met the jar's body, a little damp where the glaze had worn thin. There's a hush inside clay when it is empty, a silence I remember from childhood, when my mother sent me down for water while the sun was still waking. Now the quiet is my own. A press of cool on warm skin, the ripple of veins beneath a steady grip. I drew a breath, long and quiet, and let the air settle deep in my chest. Each slow exhale matched the hush around me. Let this moment stretch. At the well, the night folded in. My hands were steadied by habit, rope against my knuckles, the creak and give as I lowered the bucket. The well's edge was cool and worn from years of waiting palms. I listened for the soft sound of water, the little splash as the bucket found its place. In the quiet, the world shrank to the darkness below and the patience above. With care, I lifted. Arm muscles tensed, then softened. Droplets skirted the rim and slid down the outside, cool beads skimming the rough pottery. The jar pressed firm into my hip for balance, heavy now, a promise of fullness, even though I asked for nothing. The sound of water moving inside the jar, steady, shimmering, almost like a hidden song, was enough to let my mind rest. Sometimes I'd look up, stretching my neck, noticing the way the faintest light from a neighbor's lamp painted gold across the surface of the water. The world wide but smaller and safer just here. Even this silence is holy, turning home. Each step called its own rhythm. Sandals brushing stone, then dirt, each one softer than the last. The jar bumped lightly against my leg. My hands warmed by effort and cooled by the surface of the clay. The smell of dust, the weight that grew easier as my arms remembered, not fought. I breathed with the jar's cadence. Breath in, lift. Breath out, step. Breath in, balance. The night listens with you by the doorway, a hush deeper than before. I set the jar down, felt the water shift and settle, and let my palms linger on the cool, damp ring the jar made on earth. No one noticed the prayer, but it was heard. He asked for nothing and still felt full. It is quiet long before the lamp is lit. The day has gone, but night does not hurry us. There are women by the stones, hands sunk deep in the pale dough. They do not speak unless they have to, and if they do, it is with their shoulders or small nods or the dusting off of flour on their robes. I stand in the corner near the door, watching. I do not offer to help. I would only interrupt the pattern. The dough sighs as they press their palms into it. In and out, flour drifts through the air. It lands on the table, on their knuckles, in the faint grooves of old wood. The room feels still and dull, but not empty. You could almost fall asleep standing, watching the repetition. In and out, in and out. One of them turns the dough, folds it, presses again. The rhythm is slow. No one hurries. The smell of yeast is faint. One lamp burns, its light making shadows move, then settle. Someone coughs softly. A breeze comes through the window and leaves just as quietly. Even the fire is patient. They pinch off a bit more dough, flatten it between their hands. You hear their knuckles creak. The hush of the night deepens. A round of dough is pressed thin, thin again, and then thinner, always careful, never tearing. There's nothing much to see, and that feels right. It is time to wait. A woman lays the flatbread over a warm stone by the fire. The dough hisses very softly, almost grateful. Someone breathes out. There is little else. Hands move, flex, rest, then begin again. In and out, in and out. The air is warm, not quite hot. The fire is not fierce. It glows steady, as if it too is listening. The stone is quiet beneath the bread. The lamp is quiet above. Everyone's eyes are soft. Let the moment stretch. Give us today our daily bread, someone murmurs, not as a teaching but as a habit too gentle to notice. The words float and fade, quieter than the fire. The bread browns in patches, puffing at the edges. A smell of warmth rises. The women wait. There's no rush, nothing new, nothing urgent. Only the slow making and remaking, every day the same. Bread turns, rises, settles back flat. Soft hands stack each piece under a clean cloth. No one tries to impress. No one tells stories tonight. The dough does all the talking. The world is small at this hour. The table, the lamp, the stone, the dough, that is all. Even this silence is holy. If I close my eyes, I can feel the rhythm of kneading from across the room, the hush between presses, the comfort of waiting. My own breath finds the pattern. In and out, in and out. Nothing is forced. Nothing explained. Bread, when it's ready, will welcome the hungry. For now, we sleep in the presence of patience and the warmth of unseen hands. It was late, maybe later than any time I should have been out. But I wanted to walk, not for any purpose, just to feel my steps echo against the stone. The outer courts were empty, except for a few shadows and the gentle flicker of a distant lamp. My feet moved on their own, slow, even, careful to land softly. There was a small comfort in the quiet weight of my sandals against the dust. I could see the fine powder leaving faint smudges on my toes, brushing them slow, the way old sand always does. Let this moment stretch. The sky above was heavy with darkness, but not unfriendly. I liked how my breath felt, cool in my chest, slow as I walked without thinking where I was going. Each inhale felt like more space opening inside me. Each step was a little quieter than the last. Sometimes I paused just to listen to what wasn't there, the noise of the day gone, the shouts and quick trades at the market, the laughter of boys running after lost goats. Now it was only the quiet. Even this silence is holy. I passed a fig tree, branches weighed down low, heavy fruit, leaves gathered in silent heaps. No one noticed me there. I slipped my hand over the rough bark, not picking, just noticing. In the night, everything stopped making demands. The tree was just a tree again. I was just a man walking, my thoughts drifting the way dust drifts in still air. Let the quiet settle in your breath. There was an old man sweeping a far corner, his broom moving slow as prayer. I watched the bristles clear a path through the dust. He did not look up. We shared the space, strangers awake in the late hush, but I didn't speak. I was glad for that. No words, no tasks, only the listening. Let your shoulders drop. The stone beneath me was smooth, worn by years of feet. I wondered if those who walked before me ever felt the need to go nowhere, to just be part of the night and the cold stone and the scent of figs. The wall nearby was cool to the touch. I leaned against it, eyes half closed, waiting for my heart to slow in the deep, steady quiet. Even my heartbeat seemed careful not to disturb the stillness. In this hush, every sound is smaller, softer, fading like a sigh. A lantern flickered at the far gate, coloring a few steps in gold. I watched the light for a while, following the shadow as it stretched, then shrank back. There was no story being told here, no lesson quietly waiting. Only the feel of the lamp's warmth on my skin as I passed by, the scent of oil and the faint tangle of burning wick. Sometimes being here was enough. Let this moment stretch. I heard a dog somewhere, padding in the distance. The bark never came. It was the kind of night where every creature understood to move quieter, to ask nothing from the dark. I didn't hurry. I didn't even really decide which way to turn. Each step was the answer to its own question. Just go, then go a little more. Sandal, stone, dust. Let the rhythm find you. I saw shapes in the far shadows. A woman gathering her scarf a little tighter. A boy stretching his arms in the cool air, looking up as if he might see the whole night all at once. I watched them, not because I needed to. Sometimes it's enough to notice, to let people be exactly as far away as they wish. Even my watching was soft, unneeded, unnoticed. I felt the quiet invitation. Let yourself be small tonight, nothing to prove, nothing to plan. Even your quiet is heard. For a while I just stood in the open space. Above, the stars blinked without hurry. Somewhere someone closed a window softly. I noticed the way the light slipped out before the shutter settled. Even the closing was gentle, slow, sure, normal. No meaning to find, just the comfort of night settling over stone and skin alike. I let my eyes close just for a breath. Let your jaw unclench. There was a little wind, the kind that moves barely at all, turning the fig leaves over, stirring the cool air near my ankles. I liked the shiver it brought, a reminder that I was alive outside, part of something much older than my own story. I took a long, steady breath and let my body notice how tired it was. The good, safe kind of tired that asks for nothing, gives itself quietly to the waiting dark. Let your breath get softer. Let the steps grow slower. A temple pillar held the night in place, solid and still. I traced my fingers along its edge. I thought about how many quiet walkers must have leaned here, waiting for a friend or just for the sun to come back. Sometimes the waiting was enough. I felt my weight settle into the stone, shoulders heavy, empty of worry. God moves slowly too, I thought. Even this is prayer, even if I don't say it. I made a slow circle around the court, stopping again and again to watch nothing in particular. A beetle crossing the seam in the stone, a feather caught in a corner, a chill settling over the dust. My steps stayed slow. For once I didn't think about what came next. I let the night decide. Let this moment stretch. Let the quiet fill your chest, the fig tree behind me, the gate ahead. Steps measured so no one notices, not even myself. I carry nothing but the sound of my sandals gliding, easy, unhurried. Even now I am only part of something gentle, each sound, each step, each breath. No one waited for me. I needed nothing. This night asked only for a little attention, a slow walk, a watching heart, the leaving of every hurry outside. I let myself believe, as the air cooled further, that God noticed quiet things too. That maybe somewhere beyond the stone someone else listened for footsteps and breath, finding comfort just in being here, unrushed, unneeded, unmissed, but present. Even the silence is holy. Let it listen with you, and still I walked, the night longer than I expected, each step easier than the last. When I finished, there would be nothing to tell, nothing to prove, only the quiet memory of walking and watching and being watched over, softly, slowly, unnoticed but never alone. Let the rest claim you. Let your heartbeat find the pace of these steps. The hour just after midday sits heavy. No one rushes in these walls right now. The sun presses lazy rectangles onto the floor, and the room is all shadows and soft lines. Under a simple shelf, scrolls rest with the patience of stones. Their edges curl, honey pale and thin. Not a single word escapes them. Even the air refuses to stir much. I pause, letting the silence be my companion. I can see the tiniest flecks, dust drifting close to the parchment, never quite settling and yet never quite free. Each scroll tied loosely, the ends worn smooth by generations of careful hands, and sometimes by hands like mine, hesitant. No one reaches for them. A scribe passed through earlier but left them untouched, saving the effort for later, maybe for evening. Today, these scrolls are just company, holy company, beloved in their waiting. I almost imagine reading them, unrolling the layers of thin, breathing paper, each word a secret still sleeping. But something holds me. Stillness itself wraps around the shelf. Dusk gathers in corners, quiet as a prayer you forget to speak aloud. There's no pressure, nothing urgent. The words are alive even now, wrapped tightly inside themselves, breathing in the dark, a kind of rest. Let this moment stretch. Even this silence is holy. Outside the window, a bird cries for a moment, then gives up. Even the breeze is soft, settling old leaves against the wall near my feet. I feel the urge to busy my hands, maybe to straighten the shelf or brush away the fine sand creeping in from the street. But instead I just stand there, breathing. Even unopened, the scrolls are scripture. Even untouched, the word is here. I don't need to make sense of it now. There's time for these holy things. No one calls my name. There's nothing I must say. Only the hush of old writing waiting to be noticed, and the slow comfort of knowing it will wait as long as it needs. The lamp's wick burns low on the table. Its oil is nearly gone, but its warmth makes the room feel safe. The slowest light, golden and a little sleepy. Each shadow belongs here, familiar as a friend you trust. A gentle quiet fills my whole chest. For a moment I remember the words. that the Word was with God and was God, not just words for reading, words that keep living, even behind closed bindings and folded edges. The room is fuller for it. Everything is allowed to rest. I step away, careful not to disturb the dust I've been watching. The scrolls stay where they've always been, faithful in their waiting, needed even when not needed at all. Let the silence do the work. Let the Word keep whispering, even in unopened spaces. The night will listen with you. He asked for nothing and still felt full. There was a kindness in the deep afternoon, a kind of hush that you feel far behind your chest, like water left still after a rain. That's when Nicodemus let himself slip out, through one crooked door, beneath the edge of sky that pressed low and white against Jerusalem's walls. The other voices stayed inside. Just outside, the slope opened into quiet, and the olive tree, old and silver-backed, waited where it always had. Nobody planned to sit here, yet the shade became a haven, gentle and unearned. He pressed his palm to the tree's rough skin, then sat. The grass beneath leaned away from the sun, nothing moving but shifting shapes, the breeze carrying their cool across his ankles. His knees tucked up in a way that felt childlike. He let his eyes wander, tracing how sun freckled the dust between each rooted stone. For a long while he listened for something, but it was only the world turning over gently, a bird lifting out of the next field, calling once, then forgetting itself. In that suspended hush, even the wind had a quiet voice. It tickled the leaves over his head, making circles of light that touched his knees, then drifted away, over and over like slow breath, shadows shifting, never urgent. Sometimes the patterns looked like open hands, sometimes just blurs of warm and cool. He let them dance across his palms, studying each change as if it mattered. It did, in a small way. He could hear a servant somewhere down the hill, the soft call to another, then laughter, all of it swimming through air made slow by summer. There was bread in his pack. He didn't eat it. He wasn't hungry. He watched as a tiny beetle traced the rim of his sandal, then disappeared beneath a smooth stone. Everything felt held. The pauses were longer than the sounds. Nicodemus leaned back against the tree, feeling its silent patience. No lesson, only company. The olive branches curved above, wide enough to shade both his worry and his hope. He listened to the way his own breath was part of the hush, quietly joining the wind. Somewhere another bird answered, more curious than before. Then silence returned, gentle as a folded robe. Every edge softened. Let this moment stretch. There was no rush to prayer, no pressure to believe. For a while he simply watched the patchwork light move. He remembered how, as a boy, he'd tried to count the leaves, always losing track. Now he found it restful not to add them up, just to notice that shade touched every branch different, every minute rewritten slow. Rest was not earned here. It just happened. Little by little he gave up needing to understand it. Even the silence is holy. Nicodemus let his eyes close, half thinking of nothing, half listening for God just beyond the edge of the quiet. The day waited with him. In the gentle boredom beneath the olive tree he felt full, though nothing had been asked or given. Only the warmth of small shadows, a breeze against his wrist, and the comfort of not having to move. He asked for nothing and still felt full. No one noticed the prayer, but it was heard. The world kept turning softly. The leaves kept blessing the ground with patchwork light. And Nicodemus rested, letting every pause remind him he was not alone. The room is dim quiet even for this hour. Lamps burn low, leaving a gentle bowl of gold at the edge of my sight. The cool stone underfoot feels steady, a kind of hush that holds the room together. Night gathers behind the door, but in here it is only slow hands and soft cloth. A pile of tunics waits beside me. Nothing grand, just everyday wear smelling faintly of sun and wood smoke. I lift one, simple and loose. My fingers find the hem, rough from washing, yet familiar. The first fold is always the same. I smooth the garment along the table, edges lined up, tracing the shape of days past, work, walking, kneeling. I press it gently. No rush. Just the work over and over. There is a piece in this pattern. Pick up a sleeve. Fold it in, then the other. Tunics stack like calm breaths, one upon another. So ordinary it feels holy, the movement, the weight, the way things return to their place. There's no hurry now. Cloth settles under my hands, cool and forgiving. The fibers give way, thread by thread. Each crease is a small moment, soft and easy, like the night gathering itself around my shoulders. Light flickers on the wall. Shadows play along the linen. For a while I listen to the hush of the house, the distant scrape of a chair, the tiny song of crickets pressed against the windowsill. Somewhere near the door, a lamp is drawn closer. The hush grows. This is the time for slow things. There is no one to impress, no audience, just the quiet work beneath the lamp. I smooth another sleeve flat, patient. Sometimes I let my eyes blur just to feel the fabric, not see it. My mind floats with each motion. Fold, press, turn, stack. It repeats, and in the repetition, God feels near. Not speaking, just close. Even the silence has a weight, a kindness. Nicodemus sits a few steps away, a thoughtful stillness about him. I do not interrupt. He is caught up in some quiet inward place. No words pass between us, only the grounded, gentle labor. Every so often our eyes meet and a small nod says enough. We are here. We are enough. There is comfort in the cycle. Pick up, fold, rest. The slow measure of it, the fabric remembering the shape of the body, how it clings and falls away. The hum of familiar things. To fold is to remember, not just the hours or hands that wore these tunics, but some quiet part of myself. The folds are like prayers with no language, just touch. Let this moment stretch. Nothing must happen yet. Even the smallest chore is wrapped in its own holiness. The room is tender, held together by tasks most would never write about. Tonight I will, because even unremarkable things are seen. Even in the stillness, God sits with us in every rhythm, in every soft repetition, in every careful fold. The night listens with you. Sleep comes gently, like linen settling into a neat, waiting pile. Even if you drift off, the story keeps working, quiet, faithful, folding you into something safe. There was a stone bench set against the outer wall of the house. Nicodemus found it without meaning to. His hand tested the ledge, cool, rough as river pebbles, holding the chill from morning shade even as the sunlight faded out along the street. He did not speak. The voices of other men and women drifted up from nearby, some deeper, some light with laughter. None called for him. In those hours before dusk, the world felt like a room he could watch from just outside the door. No part of any group, just a listener. His tunic bunched beneath him. The hem of his cloak dragged a little dust as he shifted, setting both feet on the packed earth. sandal straps pressing over his toes, firm and familiar, grit working loose beneath the leather, the kind you never notice until you rest for a while. There was a rhythm to the place. Sun, stone, dust, and faint smells of bread baking somewhere down the street. Nicodemus drew his cloak tighter. On his palm, the cold bench felt steadier than anything he could see or hear. It was real, solid, the kind of stillness that doesn't care about words. When he pressed his fingertips into the stone, the world around him hushed a little more. The echo of laughter faded, only the hush of wind twisting through fig leaves, rustling a robe here and there. He let his hand rest flat, grounding himself to afternoon. Eyes closed, not to shut the world out, but to let it in soft, like lying beneath a sky you trust to hold you. The chill of stone beneath him offered its own permission. Slow down. Let this moment stretch. Even the waiting was a kind of prayer. A moth landed on the edge of the bench, brushed its wings once, then fell still. Nicodemus watched it settle. No one disturbed him. Here not speaking, just listening to voices that never really reached him. He remembered that God listens best in quiet places. Even this silence is holy. His hand did not tremble. The stone, the sounds, the slow warmth where sunlight was slipping away, they held him steady. He asked for nothing and still felt full. It was a quiet part of the road, just close enough to the city that you could hear the soft hum of distant voices, just far enough that the air felt cool on your neck. My sandals picked up pale dust. It clung to my feet, dry but not uncomfortable, just something you noticed, the way you notice the sound of your own breathing when dusk has nothing left to say. At a bend, beneath a low branch heavy with figs, I saw another traveler resting on the stone. A cloak was spread behind him, edges dusted by the ground. His hands, silent and methodical, had already pulled a handful of figs from a small pouch. He broke one open slowly, gently, and looked up. He didn't say anything right away. I nodded, and it was enough. Without ceremony, he took another fig and offered it, palm open, the brown fruit sitting there in the gentle light. The skin of the fig was warm from the day. I accepted it, nodded again. My thumb pressed into the soft skin, felt it give. I pulled it open, and inside the fruit was pale, the seeds clustered close. The smell was sweet and grassy, but there was something deeper, a calm earthiness, a promise of water near the roots. Not a word between us, no reason for it. We just chewed quietly. The sweetness was slow and careful, the way you taste something more when you don't talk about it. A few wrens shifted in the branches overhead, then tucked their heads beneath wings. Even the birds seemed to be listening in on the quiet. Wind moved through the leaves, not enough to rustle, just enough to remind you it was there. I could smell the coolness of the air, and under it the faint smell of clean cloth and the oil pressed from olives. Every sense felt unhurried, like time was stretching itself out so we could notice everything before it disappeared. The other traveler chewed the fig with slow, measured movements. The skin crackled softly between teeth. The inside was sticky, sweet, and faintly gritty. I could feel the juice not running down my chin, just resting on my tongue. The night seemed to thicken around us, but not in any heavy way. It was simply more present. The lamp he had set between us gave off a soft, yellow comfort. My hand brushed the clay where it was chipped and smooth with age. There was nothing to discuss, not the day's walking, not the little aches in our feet, not the stories that pull at us when we are alone. Every so often he broke another fig. Each time the sound was a quiet gift. We both ate. The pauses between bites were long, almost sacred. Sometimes I watched his hands. They were steady and clean, with lines that told stories no one ever needed to say out loud. As I ate, my jaw moved slow, letting the sugar stay longer, letting my stomach settle. I thought of home, of other nights around other tables, and how rarely I'd truly tasted the simple things, how hunger and company could both be fed without rushing or explaining. We sat there, unspeaking, a few soft breaths, a scrape of sandal on stone, a fig broken open between thumb and forefinger. I noticed the sky. The blue had gone nearly gray, except for a rim of coral far off, barely seen. My eyes itched a little with the gentle coolness of evening. I shifted my weight, careful not to disturb the hush. One more fig. The last one, split evenly, handed over. Silence again. The sweetness never mentioned, only shared. It didn't need words. The act of giving, the act of receiving. He asked for nothing and still felt full. Let this moment stretch. The night listens with you. Even this silence is holy. Beneath the fig tree, in the unremarkable hush of late evening, nothing much happened. But the taste of it settled into us. I found myself breathing slower, the world quieter, an unspoken prayer hanging between us, an old, small kindness that fills an empty place, then leaves it softer than before. No one noticed the prayer, but it was heard. Nicodemus returns to the small room well after dark. The house is quieter than a whisper. Lamps burn low, edges of shadow pooling along the floor like cloth waiting to be folded. He does not hurry. Each step seems slower than the last, as if the night itself presses soft hands against his shoulders and tells him, "Wait." No one sits up to greet him. The streets outside are emptied of voices. There is more silence than space. He sets a clay cup down, the sound barely louder than breath. With each movement, dust settles from his sandals. He unlaces them and places them neatly side by side, not for any reason except that it feels gentle. The cool air drifts in. Even silence is holy. Let this moment stretch. The cloth in his hand is thin from use, edges frayed. He folds it again and again, hands slow and grateful, not minding the creases. It is an act that asks nothing, says nothing, only listens. Even silence is holy. Nicodemus sits near a small table. He rests his palm on the wood, still warm from the day. He feels no rush to fill the hush with words or plans. Behind the closed door, the world's noise has nowhere to reach him. The lamp's glow is soft, held close. He lets his eyes drift to where lamplight ends and darkness begins. The line is quiet. He breathes and lets the gentle nothingness wrap around his shoulders. Even this silence is holy. The memory of Jesus' voice hums through the room, quieter than memory, lighter than wind. There had been words, yes, but now they are set aside. There is only the echo, a kindness that doesn't need to be spoken to remain. Nicodemus listens for nothing at all. He does not imagine answers coming, nor form any prayer. He sits. Let this moment linger. The world outside has curled itself into sleep. Nicodemus studies the shadows in the corners, how slowly they move as the lamp flickers in the draught. He thinks about bread left rising in the kitchen, about the water waiting to be carried at dawn. He finds comfort in the work already done and in the tasks undone. There is no urgency now. There is just the settling in. Even silence is holy. The air is cooler near the window. He walks, bare feet padded on the tile, just to see how the stars rest above the roof. There are no questions worth asking under this sky. He lets the lamp's glow breathe out with him. He stands for several slow breaths as if to see if God might whisper something unexpectedly into the night air. But nothing comes. The night listens with him. A soft sound from the hallway, a creak of old wood, a bowl set down in another room. These are notes in tonight's lullaby. Nicodemus leans against the wall and smiles faintly. Here nothing stirs for long. Even silence is holy. He picks up the folded cloth, smoothing it once more, placing it beside the others in the basket. In the dimness, colors are gentle and without sharpness. He notices how alone he feels and how kind it is to let the quiet grow. He does not pray for company. He does not ask for dreams. He asks for nothing and still feels full. Let this moment rest. Nicodemus lowers himself onto a mat on the floor, knees creaking as they settle. The clay cup, half full with water, waits at his side. He drinks slowly, not out of thirst, but to taste how cool and honest the water has become in the night. Even this, even drinking in the dark, is holy. Thoughts rise and fall like shallow breaths. Not every thought leads somewhere. Most arrive quietly and leave by the same door. Nicodemus lets them pass without naming them. The holy conversation tonight is not spoken. He sits in the patient company of unspoken prayers. The lamp flickers low. Shadows move. Nicodemus wraps his arms across his chest, not in longing, but in a soft embrace of simply being. He remembers nothing in particular. He waits for nothing in return. Even this waiting is holy. Let the hush widen outside. A dog barks far down the alley, and then even that echo sleeps. Footsteps do not pass the window. The city holds its breath with him. Nicodemus knows, somewhere just beyond, Jesus is still awake, but there is comfort in the secrets that don't need telling. His heart holds a quiet that feels like company. He pictures the weight of a hand on his shoulder, neither heavy nor light. No words, just presence. Even silence is holy. He traces the edge of the mat with his finger, feels the gentle scratch of straw through the cloth, accepts that tonight questions find no shape, answers are unnecessary. The lamp guttering low is a prayer answered. The sky on the edge of dawn is a promise waiting for nothing more. No one noticed the prayer, but it was heard. Let sleep come up. Like the tide, with the final drift of lamplight, Nicodemus rests back, breath steady, eyelids heavy. Neighboring rooms are quiet as old stone. There is peace even in unfinished things. There is grace in a day simply ended. Even silence is holy. Let this moment carry you too. Even if you say nothing tonight, even if your mind is empty and your heart feels quiet, the holy conversation continues. Even without words you can be heard. Even silence is holy. Let the night hold you. The night listens with you. When the last rays melt away, you hardly catch it, but the air cools a little. The street outside is longer now, hidden under one steady hush. Dust settles, quiet as breath over the stones. You can see the whole lane shifting, familiar but new. Day's work folded up and put away in corners. I watch from inside, folding the last piece of linen. My hands move slowly now. The cloth is softer in the dusk, colors turned gentle by the shadows, corners gathered to the heart. There's no rush, Not now, not here. The smell of pressed olive oil drifts from the lamp, sweet, heavy, honest. That scent means rest. All along the windows of houses, small lamps flicker up. It's not sudden light, more a faint blooming, like blush across a cheek, not demanding to be seen. There are no torches, only small, single flames patient on their plates of clay. The glow pools in the center of each room, barely reaching the walls. Edges soften. My own room shrinks around what's important. The blanket at my feet, the sound of sandals shuffled into their corner, the low hush of distant voices winding down the street. Across the way, someone is putting water over embers, a little hiss, a final meal. Even birds know. Their song gives over little by little to darkness. I sit, settle my shoulders, gather the lamp closer. Wax and oil, faintly smoky, thick in the air. It's a smell as familiar as bread rising. It means enough light for one more thing, just a little peace before sleep. My robe slipped loose already. I tighten it, not for modesty, just for the comfort, the way fabric clings when sleep wants to come. The light is warmer now. My eyes grow soft. The day loosens its grip. I can almost forget the world keeps turning. Tonight I do not ask for answers. I just listen. I listen to the lamp's breath. I listen to my own. I whisper, "Here I am, Lord, I am small. I am tired. Stillness holds me. The Lord knows my breath. I am not forgotten. God walks slowly, too. Grace is here. The night is enough. Peace fills this room. My soul is safe. Amen. Amen. Amen." Nicodemus asks quietly if he might borrow a lamp. It's a small one, warm in his palm. Someone nods and passes it to him, not giving it a second thought. He feels the gentleness of the act, how some things are shared simply because the night is long, and no one wants another soul to stumble in the dark. The lamp is half filled with oil, just enough. He sees how the flame leans when he moves, soft and uncertain. The air is cool, the darkness kind around the edges. He walks more slowly, careful not to let the light go out. Every footstep has its own hush, as if the stones themselves listen. He notices his breath is slow now. In through the nose, hold, out through the mouth. The flame seems to breathe with him, drawing long, thin lines of gold when he inhales, shivering, retreating a little when he lets go. He adjusts his grip, steadying the lamp. There's no rush here. The hallway turns with quiet corners, the kind that make you softer just by walking through them. He wonders how many others have carried this lamp, how many evenings and hands have watched it tremble. He likes the small independence of holding his own light, but also the comfort that it was never truly his. The room ahead is still in shadow, waiting. No one expects him. He's not late. He's just moving at a pace the darkness allows. The lamp glows, not as a show, just as a kindness. It holds back only enough shadow to keep him gentle. He listens to his own breathing, syncing it with the flicker. Sometimes as he exhales, the wick seems to bow. He whispers thank you, though he isn't sure to whom. The lamp, the night, or the one who made both. The hall is quieter than his thoughts. He lets them fade. It's enough to walk, breathing with the lamp. The flame is honest, never too proud, happy just to be noticed. He thinks of how easy it would be to miss such a thing, how much care lives in the way ordinary light is carried. Let this moment stretch. He takes a seat beside a doorway, the lamp resting on his knee. The oil sighs as it warms, and the hint of olive smoke makes him hungry and grateful. The world is reduced to a small circle of gold, his hands and his breath. He watches the flame continue its slow, dancing rhythm, echoing every easy inhale, every gentle exhale. No one hurries him. There is peace here in doing almost nothing. He wonders quietly at how a borrowed lamp can feel like belonging. He asked for nothing and still felt full. The streets are quieter tonight. You can hear it in the way sandals don't really echo. They just land gentle on uneven stones. Every so often, a cloak brushes against the wall. It makes a hush, as soft as folding old linen, as if the night itself sighs, letting the sounds pass through. Nicodemus moves down an alley no one uses after dark. Millstone dust settles on the ground, untouched since late afternoon. He almost holds his own breath, just to hear what the stones would say back if they could, or maybe to notice how nothing says anything at all. Sometimes the tiniest click, pebble to pebble, is the world's only story. A lamp hangs behind a wooden shutter, and its light spills in a long, tired shape along the cobbles. It isn't gold. Lately, lamplight is always some shade of softened amber, the kind that makes you squint just a bit to see the outline of someone's shoulder as they keep moving. Shadows fall flat behind Nicodemus. He mostly follows the corners, not the street. Not because of fear, more like wanting stillness to last just a little longer. The old walls are cool from nighttime breezes. His fingertips graze the lime-washed stone from time to time. There's a comfort in the cool roughness, in tracing lines nobody ever marked. He waits for a door to creak open. The silence is patient, as if time itself is folded, pressing everyone softly but never hurrying. Sometimes he slows his steps just to listen for a distant voice or a closing gate. Those sounds, muffled as a dream, only make him walk softer. The air itself feels thick enough that words would drift in it, heavy as bread dough before baking, waiting, not ready yet. No one speaks his name in these alleys. That is a kindness of the night, no reason to call, no reason to answer. Instead, the sound of his own breathing keeps him company, slow in and out, letting each breath measure the darkness, never rushing it ahead of itself. There's the tap of a stick or maybe a shepherd's staff 2 streets away. That too is distant, kept at the right kind of length. No animal sounds, no urgent shouting, only the repeated hush of Nicodemus's sandals and the rare swoosh of air when he moves too quickly near a hanging rag. Even dust motes seem to float slower here. The darkness isn't empty. It holds everything softly in place. He takes a long pause by a broken step. There's no need to hurry. The lamp he borrowed from his own kitchen is cupped and shaded by his hand, but its gold pool flickers out only a little way ahead. What isn't lit isn't lost, just waiting for another turn to be seen. Let this moment stretch for a while. There is such peace in a night that doesn't ask for answers or arrivals. Just the ongoing comfort of placing one foot quiet after another, testing the silence, trusting the stone to hold. Nicodemus is not alone. He knows this, not because of voices, but because the air feels watched in a good way, protected by something bigger than the curve of walls and roofs. Each turn is gentle. Every alley offers another shadow, another slow breath, another few heartbeats where the world does not intrude. The steps soften, the city sighs. The hush gathers up all tired things and keeps them safe. The night listens with you if you pause here and let your breath slow. You may hear what Nicodemus hears, a world holding its peace, a path held open by invisible hands. There are hidden corners everywhere. Some are found near borrowed lamps and trailing shadows. Some are simply chosen each time we walk softly enough to notice. Even this silence is holy. There's a quiet that settles just before a door is knocked, not the loud kind, but the one that hangs in the air, soft and steady. The night smells like cooling stone and wild grass. Breath comes slow, easy. Around me the street is empty, gentle. My feet shift a little on dust that's settled for days. I stand, not really holding myself straight, just there, hands folded, heart quiet. There is no rush anywhere. The night has its own reasons for moving slowly, and I have chosen to move along with it. My eyes fall on the door. It is plain wood, grain catching a little moon's light. There's no lantern on the doorstep, just a sliver of gold slipping from underneath, that's all. I watch it like a small river cut through earth. In my hand, my fingers brush the heavy fold of my sleeve, a borrowed tunic, warm from where it rested by the fire. The cloth holds some memory of the daytime, but here, just now, all I feel is the cool hush of darkness folding over me. I tap the door gently, not a real knock, more a question than a demand. The sound, if it can be called a sound, drifts out and barely touches the quiet. It's swallowed right up by the night's long pause. No one hurries. The world doesn't rush to meet me, and I start to wonder if maybe that's good. I let my eyes close for a breath. Nothing happens. The door doesn't move. The silence feels patient, almost protective. The night air makes slow circles on my skin. My body decides to rest against the wall, taking the chance to breathe deeper, softer. Inside, I imagine low voices, distant, a lamp being set aside, maybe, or the slow, easy shifting of someone making room by the hearth. But outside, everything is space and pause and permission to wait as long as need be. I look up and a small moth floats near the door frame, drawn to a little reflection. For a long moment there's nothing but the flutter, and my own letting go of whatever I thought might happen next. The knock I gave is already gone, just a small memory in wood and air. The waiting becomes its own kind of breathing. The weight of the day slips gently away. I hear my own heart and the small, simple trust that something or someone is waiting behind the door, patient as I am. He asked for nothing and still felt full. Let this moment stretch. No one notices this prayer, but it is heard. Even this silence is holy. The night listens with you, and the knock, barely a thought, sits between us, both waiting, both quiet, until the time finds its own way to open. The way in is simple, and the night makes its own kind of welcome. I remember the hush more than anything, the sound of a foot brushing against smooth, tired stone, the way the old street gave beneath sandals that had seen too many roads. The air felt easier out here, away from the heavy wondering. It cooled my skin and slowed my thoughts. Sometimes home isn't a place but the feeling of being less alone than before. I waited outside the door, a borrowed door, wood worn to a buttery shine where hands had always reached, always hoping. My knuckles didn't rap, not really. It was softer than that. The shape of my hand hovered. Maybe he already knew I was here, crossing the threshold now. There's a shifting of air, cool and steady, just as I step inside. It is darker in here. Clay walls holding back the heat of the outside and holding in the softer night, too. The lamp nearest the door throws a gentle circle onto the floor. It was enough. Safe still, held, my sandals find the edge of a scratch across the planks, the lines in old wood, telling their story in quiet. I press my foot down just to feel it, to remind myself that I am real in this place, that the ground won't slip. Someone has left a clay cup on the floor, just tucked beneath a stool near the wall. Its rim catches a finger's width of lamplight. I think about who last drank from it. Maybe it was him, maybe not. Still, the sight is gentle, ordinary. It lets my mind settle. Even the air is still safe. I stand a moment longer than I mean to. The house seems to breathe deeper than I do. I match my breath to it, a quiet inhale, a slower exhale. The night encourages waiting. Nothing rushes here, cloaks rest folded on a bench. The wool holds the memory of sun from the day. My hand reaches out, just brushing the top layer of softness, warmth still banked inside. The simple act of touching cloth, of knowing its weight and its safety, calms something restless. Safe still, held to the walls curve close, gentler than I remembered. I study the uneven line where clay and straw meet stone. The room is plain, no finery, no cold distance. Everything is close. There is nothing to announce me here, nothing to distract. I notice dust, too, quiet as sleep settled into corners, bits of the day that no one bothers to chase away. Let it settle, a lamp flickers when I step past, its flame bending softly, as if breathing along with me. My shadow follows. For a moment I watch it. Strange how my shape looks safest here, smaller inside these walls, softer in the light. His voice comes from deeper into the room, not loud. It doesn't fill the space, just touches it quietly. He asks nothing, offers nothing extra, nothing complicated, only come in. I let the simple words rest. I don't answer quickly. There's no need. Even this silence is holy. I take another careful step forward. There's a small rug frayed at the edges where my feet come to pause. The night is still cool. It feels good to stand still. Standing is enough just now. Outside, the world keeps moving, but here the hush is thick and lasting. A place to breathe twice. A house that holds every sound with patience. Safe, still, held, I reach for the bench along the wall, lowering myself until wood meets bone. The bench rocks a bit, a memory of every weight it's carried. I let the sway slow me. I feel the old nail heads beneath my palm. It grounds me, safe, still, held. Someone's left a folded cloth beside me, its edge lined with red thread. I smooth my finger over it, enjoying the smallness of the gesture. Ordinary things feel more important at night. I tuck the cloth against my side, the way I remember my mother doing when I was a child, letting the chill stay outside. The lamp glows softer now, or maybe my eyes are growing used to this dusk inside. Either way, there's nothing sharp. I let every breath match this quiet. In and out, let this moment stretch there on the table. A plate holds the end of a loaf, a heel of bread. I break it without planning to. The crust is cool and the center yields. I am neither hungry nor full, but the act is enough. He asked for nothing, and still I feel full. A steady voice stirs the air once more. No answers are given, no commands pressed, only space, only welcome. This is the calm that carries. Sometimes the world outside is too big, and sometimes the inside is just small enough to hold every anxious thought quieted in the hush. I let myself belong. Every wall keeps me safe still held. There are no questions here, only the gentle exchange of being seen, of being here inside at this slow hour. The clay walls lean in, the table sits steady, the lamp waits, and I do too, safe, still, held. Nicodemus steps inside, a small room, still and dim in the low lamplight. The door closes behind him with a sigh. He stands for a moment, listening to his own quiet breath, measuring the hush that settles along the walls. The air in here feels cool, just a little lighter than the city street. The room is empty except for a low table, a stool, and a clay lamp shining softly from a little niche. Shadows slip easily onto the floor. He sets his bag down, careful not to disturb the simple order of things. Nothing here calls after him, nothing asks to be tended. Nicodemus sits, not straight but gently, leaning into the comfort of normal shapes. His fingers rest on the table's edge, feeling the smoothed wood, the absence of clutter. There are no scrolls in sight, no voices echo in these corners, just a slow pulse, the quiet presence of walls holding silence like cupped hands around a flame. His sandals slip off. The soles of his feet meet cool clay. He lets the smallness of the room shape his breathing, slow, easy, matching the steady glow of the lamp. He can hear his own inhale, soft and even. He lets it out without holding back. Once in a while, a distant sound, someone shifting in the courtyard below, a window shutter closing, drifts in, then disappears. In between is only the mild music of his tired heart and the room's strong, patient hush. There are no paintings, no rugs. The table holds nothing but a shallow bowl pushed aside and a folded cloth. The emptiness here does not tug on him for anything more. He does not reach for a reason. He does not need to speak. The room waits in stillness, not with expectation but with a simple, receiving quiet. Nicodemus draws another long breath. The lamp's golden circle pools near his elbow, warm and close, not asking. The corners of the ceiling vanish in dimness. Even the air seems soft, settling heavy and familiar on his shoulders. He closes his eyes for a moment and lets the feeling of being held by the room seep in. No hurried thoughts tumble after him. The small walls do not press. They assure with their silence. Nothing will happen until he moves, and even then, maybe not much will happen at all. Here, even his worries dim, curling up in the corners where no one is watching. In this emptiness he feels somehow more full. He did not bring an offering. He did not come prepared to teach or plead. He came to be present, and the room welcomes him, not for what he brings but just because he came. He can hear his breath again, steady and almost slow enough to match the clockless pace of the night. Every wall reflects it softly back. Here, in these spare surroundings, the emptiness does not demand. It holds. He sinks into the hush as if walls themselves are teaching him to rest, to breathe, to listen. And for now, just being in this gentle absence is enough. There are nights when even the air is slow, breathing settles deeper, and lamps burn lower, as if the whole city has softly agreed to stop trying. If you listen, really listen, there's a hush lying over every rooftop, every stone, each patch of earth still holding the warmth of the day. That was the kind of night Nicodemus chose. He held his cloak closer and moved one quiet step at a time along narrow alleys. Each footfall was careful, neither hurried nor hesitant. In a nearby room, I folded the last of the linens, the way you do when sleep is close, and the world is mostly gentle silence. You can hear your own hands smoothing fabric. You know the feel of dusk settling on your shoulders. The door was lighter than it looked. A faint creak, then nothing. Only the shuffle of sandals, the meeting of two men who spoke in the kind of voices you almost don't notice. Jesus was waiting. He didn't rise. He didn't gesture broadly. Just a lamp, a bowl pushed aside in the slow blink of someone quite at home inside quiet. His voice was softer than most. Even the wooden table, worn and uneven, seemed to breathe easier in the presence of such calm. Nicodemus apologized softly. Apologies never echo, not with him. There's just a murmured gratitude that slips between the walls and goes to sleep there. No one is in a hurry. It would be a long while before words began. Jesus waited. The air filled itself with the hush of two men trusting the dark to hold them. A dog barked outside, somewhere far away, but nothing in this little room changed its pace. Then barely, a question. A statement, really, something about knowing God was with him. But Jesus answered with a sound before a sentence. Not a sigh, not exactly, rather, the gentle rolling out of breath, inviting whatever came to settle itself naturally on the table between them. His words didn't press. They didn't wake the night. It was more like the way water moves around stones in a stream, not hurrying, not needing to. He said something, yes. He answered, but not with swift wisdom. The question was left in the middle, hanging, like the scent of bread after supper. The softness mattered far more than the sense, the way you find comfort sometimes, not in the answer but in how someone is willing to wait with you for it. He spoke again, later, a single phrase stretched like a slow exhale. If you were nearby, you'd hear it not as doctrine but as rhythm, a low, even cadence, words finding their way into the spaces left open by kindness. You might catch the faint tap of Nicodemus' foot, keeping company with each line. You wouldn't remember the sentences, but you'd remember the feeling, like being wrapped in a blanket you didn't know you'd needed. I swept crumbs quietly from the table's edge, careful not to break their silence. The house settled along with us. Even the lamp flame wavered as if it too was listening, swaying gently in the smallest breath. Nicodemus leaned closer, not to understand better but to be nearer the sound. Isn't that the way with real peace? You forget the point. You rest inside the delivery. There were more words, or perhaps not. Sometimes in the dark you can't tell which came from a mouth and which from a heart that's suddenly less afraid. Their voices met in the middle, never crossing. Each question a gesture, each reply a turning stone slowly in the palm of a hand. Somewhere beyond the walls a neighbor's jug tipped. Water spilled with a muted splash. I watched Jesus' hand resting open on the table, palm up, patient as the earth itself. The quiet between sentences grew larger and softer. Instead of filling it, he let it be, like letting your own thoughts come and go without needing to name them. The steady pace of breath, the unfussy trust, that was the real exchange. Nicodemus listening more to cadence than content. Sometimes I would close my eyes and let the sound drift and dip, the way a lullaby does, or a prayer whispered for no one but God. Every now and then, a word lifted, but no syllable pressed too hard. The rhythm carried more than the meanings. It said, "You can rest here. You don't have to know. The night is wide enough for all your questions." After a while, Nicodemus leaned back. No one moved. Shadows flickered along the wall, first short, then long, then vanishing. Jesus shifted in his seat, cloak slipping almost to the floor, but he didn't mind. Movements so small, they hardly changed the room's temperature. I tucked another folded cloth onto the shelf. I let the quiet work. Not every night gives an answer. Some nights you half wake to the sound of someone breathing gently in the same space, saying very little, and you find your worry has softened at the edges. You realize the words you thought you needed are less than the way the silence was honored between you. People wonder about the things Jesus said that night. But for me, the thing worth remembering was how he said them, how each phrase took its time, how every reply seemed to give more silence back than it borrowed. Eventually, sandals shuffled again. Nicodemus rose. They exchanged a few last words, fewer than you'd expect. There was no urgency, no need for a dramatic goodbye. Just two men, their voices trailing out, gentle, patient. Grace didn't have to announce itself. It rode home, quiet, on the midnight air. I finished folding, set the lamp on its side table, and listened for a little longer. Even after the room emptied, those voices lingered, the slow, low current of trust. I swept the crumbs from my hands. The only sound left was the soft pulse of my own heart and the steady, holy ache of not needing anything more. Let this moment stretch. Even this silence is holy. The night listens with you. The door closed with a dull sound behind me, clay against stone. My steps found their way through shadows, careful not to wake the house. Someone had set a small lamp on the low table. The flame bent like it was listening, too. It was the hour when the air holds still, only the faintest stirring of robes as I slipped inside. The night tasted cool, like water left out for strangers. My heart beat soft, softer. I tried to be smaller, tried to make no sound at all. He didn't ask me to speak. He didn't ask for anything, only looked at me with a patient kind of quiet, like a gardener watching seeds rest beneath the soil. Each step closer felt like stepping into deeper silence. I sat, sandals bent by the journey, fingers smoothing the edge of my sleeve. The world beyond that lamp was endless. But here it was just him and the promise of a listening that didn't need to fix or explain. I breathed in, slow, the way a child does when sleep is near. I listened, not hurrying, for a long time. There was only the sound of my breath, inhale, exhale. The silence wasn't empty. It felt like a blanket unfolded by hands unseen. He spoke very little, and when he did, it was as if the words dripped into a well. I leaned in. As gently as wind slipping through the cracks, he spoke not to fill the air, but so the stillness itself might open a door for me inside. I realized listening could be worship. I didn't have to understand everything. The mystery was bigger than questions, softer than any answer. The holiness of the moment was in letting things be unfinished. There were long pauses, longer than I would ever leave in the halls or meetings of the day. Here they belonged, and I bowed to them as one bows to prayer. I let his words settle like dust on my sleeve, unnoticed but weighty. My mind wandered to the rhythm of his voice, falling and rising, like the tide far from any shore. He said things I might not remember, but the way my heart slowed, that would stay. The way the silence grew gentle, becoming a friend. The way listening let the night breathe alongside us. Let this moment stretch. Let the quiet hold you. You do not have to answer or know sometimes, just being here is faith. We breathed together, the space filled with the smallest sounds, cloth shifting, a lamp humming, nothing hurried here. Every pause was sacred. The hour leaned into itself and waited. Later, I left with no more than I brought, but I felt heavy and filled, as if silence itself had wrapped around me like a shawl. He asked for nothing, and still I felt full. Even this silence is holy. The night listens with you. I walked home beneath a sky quiet with stars. The questions could wait. The answers could sleep. Just for now, I let the mystery breathe. I listened, and it was enough. The lamps burned low in the small room. Honey-colored light pressed deep into the corners. Someone left bread on the table. I see the shape of it, quiet and unbroken, and crumbs from the day here and there. The air is still, only shifting when a body moves, carefully, as if the night itself might shatter with hurry. The others have slipped outside or already dozed off, their breath slowing long ago. I fold the edge of my cloak and hold it steady in my lap. My hands smell faintly of oil, left over from lantern wicking or olive tending, maybe both. Nicodemus stands in the doorway, silent for a while. He stands so still I think he might change his mind, might turn and leave. But all he does is breathe, a slow, measured thing, as if filling up on courage instead of air. The boards creak, a hush answers. Even pauses are prayers. He steps inside, tracing the floor with careful heels. His cloak is cleaner than most of ours. He's older than the others, softer in the face, but there's a tightness in his shoulders. He lets that go, one breath at a time. The door rests against the frame, held in place by nothing but the quiet and a leaning shadow. Jesus sits beside a lamp, the borrowed kind with a chipped base. He doesn't speak, not first. There is room, safe and wide, for everything to rest. The night holds what each of us brings, and then nothing more. Even pauses are prayers. No one says Nicodemus's name. Everyone here knows why he's come. You can hear it in small sounds, sand slipping off his sandals, his heart moving beneath plain fabric, the almost silent catch in his throat. They begin with silence. It stretches, but not unkindly. There is no urge to fill it. Even the sound of a distant street dog, short and sharp, feels gentle this late. In this house, spaces come before sentences. Even pauses are prayers. The first words from Jesus are so soft I almost miss them. Just a greeting, just peace. Not to impress, only to welcome. The greeting rests in the air between them, waiting for acceptance. Nicodemus answers, but not right away. There is a pause, a breath taken, a hand adjusted, fabric shifting. Even pauses are prayers. Some stories are all questions and answers. This one is more about holding words until they soften. Nicodemus asks nothing for a long time. He waits as if even his confusion deserves its own breath. Jesus does not mind. I watch them, quietly folding a linen again and again, even though it's already smooth. No one is impatient. The hush itself is generous. Even pauses are prayers. Through the open window there's the faintest wind, not enough to move a candle, only enough to remind you the world is wider than this room. I think of the Roman guard on some far-off street missing this small stillness. I think about how often I chase noise. Not here. Here every silence is safe. Even pauses are prayers. There is teaching, yes, but softly. Not a sermon, not a lesson with points. More like two men sharing a loaf. Jesus speaks of being born anew, but even as he says it, he lets the words settle. He places them gently. He lets them breathe. Nicodemus receives them without needing to respond too fast. Each answer sits in the middle of the table, waiting for the next. Even pauses are prayers. I refill a jug. I almost drop the cup, tired as I am. No one notices. It is all so quiet, no shame in clumsiness. Nicodemus stares at the lamp, eyes half closed, the flame mirrored deep in his gaze. Maybe he isn't even awake for some of this. That's all right. Even the sleepy gaps are holy. Even pauses are prayers. A moth taps once, then rests. Someone coughs outside, far down the street. The sound is not unwelcome, just another part of the room. Still, the two men at the table move slowly. Their words meander. There is more air than voice between sentences. The peace is not delicate, it does not need to be protected. It just grows. I wish all questions were treated this kindly. Jesus' face is calm, patient. Nicodemus begins to match his breathing, slower and slower. Sometimes the best thing he does is sigh, a long letting go, a little prayer of its own. Even pauses are prayers. I remember the last time we sat up late. Someone had too many stories, too many loud opinions. It was all right, but no one slept well after. Tonight, no one forces understanding or rushes clarity. Let this moment stretch. Let the silence hold you. Even pauses are prayers. Jesus lifts his cup, drinks. It is nothing special, just water, cool and plain. But the moment is careful, gentle. I wish every conversation felt this safe. Maybe the most loving parts of life happen quietly, off to the sides, in spaces where no one pushes or demands. Even pauses are prayers. Eventually, Nicodemus whispers something uncertain. I cannot hear it. Jesus only nods and the lamp glows a little warmer. The night deepens. The city outside is quieter than before. The carts have finished rolling, the goats found their rest, the children closed their eyes. Even the wind is sleeping now. Even pauses are prayers. The two men fall silent again, and I do too. There are long stretches where nothing moves, just slow breaths, just the feeling of being allowed to be here. When words return, they are gentle and few. Nothing is wasted, not even the quiet. In places like this, I learn it's all right not to know everything by morning. It's enough just to listen to the breath between words, enough to trust that sometimes, when God comes close, it sounds like nothing at all. Even pauses are prayers. The night never gave an answer, not in the way people meant when they followed Jesus through hot afternoons, crowding at the edge of something they wanted to touch. For Nicodemus, it was just a softer version of the world he already knew. The hush in a room after talk has wandered far, and nothing is expected except the next quiet breath. The lamp on the table lowered slowly, a borrowed flame dipping into its own warmth. Shadows collected in corners where no one needed to look. Even the hush was gentle, like the end of a slow song, still echoing somewhere in the dust. Words drifted between them, then paused. The talk did not close with any certainty, as if final words would have spoiled something delicate, the way a sudden wind might scatter embers before they've finished glowing. Instead, the conversation rested, a soft ending. No command, no secret to unravel, just two people letting silence say enough. Nicodemus's fingers found the fold of his own sleeve, smoothing it without reason. He watched the shape of Jesus's face, just visible by the last of the light. No tension, no strain, only presence. Words faded but did not disappear. They settled the same way the room grew dark around the glow of the lamp, then darker still, as oil ran low. One of them breathed in, and the sound filled the quiet. Night air slipped along the floor and under the door. In the nearby alley, someone's footsteps scuffed and passed. Then only distant dogs left to bark at whatever troubled their dreams. Nicodemus didn't feel dismissed. Nothing in him rushed to speak or to stand or even to understand. The talk lingered. It circled gently, closing in a way that felt unfinished, yet that was its rest. Like embers lowering in their own time, not forced to cool. In that hush he felt no urge for more and no dread that what was said would fade away. He found himself stretching the pause, breaths long and even. The air changed as lamps burned out down the street, leaving rooms dark, and the world outside held them both, the teacher and the visitor, suspended in the freedom of a night that asked nothing but surrender. He thought of home and of the long road in shadow. He did not move. He did not miss what was not said. The answers, if any, waited, flickering around the slow heart of the conversation, and he let it be. In the same way, a servant lets embers glow on until each spark gives up its own small light. No urgency followed, no whisper to keep him or push him away. Just the deep pleasure of letting stillness be the closing word, soft and sacred. He knew when he did finally step out, the talk would stay behind, waiting, not as a burden to carry, but as quiet warmth, woven into him like low coals beneath last night's ashes. Nothing asked to be remembered, yet nothing would be forgotten. The words, half-shaped and half-left, hovered in the gentle dark, all the more holy for not needing to be finished. The door closes gently behind me, soundless, save for the click of wood against stone. My lamp swings low in my hand. The oil trembles a little, but the flame holds. Only a small glow ahead, barely enough to mark each step, keeping close to the ground as if to hush the dark itself. The house melts behind me, swallowed by the night. None of the neighbors are awake, no voices, no other lights, just the wide, empty hush of Jerusalem sleeping. The street feels like mine alone tonight. The stones underfoot are cool, almost damp from the air settling as the world quiets down. Each sandal step brushes up a dusty echo, softened by the folds of darkness. I let the air wrap around my ankles and wrists, cool and easy on my skin, carrying away the traces of warm rooms and whispered words. There's comfort in the emptiness, in the way the city sighs itself empty when everyone is home, and the moon carves gentle slopes along empty doorways, silvering the stray bits of straw. I don't hurry. There's nowhere to rush. The night gives me back to myself, one soft stride at a time. I think about the lamp and its small circle of light, how it moves over the path, never ahead, never behind, asking only to mark what's next. My steps are almost soundless now. Even the cicadas hold their singing. Sometimes out here the world feels gentler. I notice the way cold air settles on the stones, how the domes and rooftops step themselves down into darkness. I listen for familiar sounds, the creak of old shutters, the creak of my own knees. Nothing asks for me. Still, I walk with care, every movement slower than it needs to be, stretching this quiet as long as it will last. I remember holding my breath in that room, not because of fear, but to keep from scattering the peace. It follows me now, sticky sweet and slow, like honey cooling on clay. I could vanish into this peace if I wanted. But I know the streets by heart. Even in dark corners, each turn is simple, expected still. Warmth lingers only at the base of the lamp's handle and beneath my robe. Everywhere else, the night air curls over my skin, a soft reminder that I am both small and held. Every echo fades before it even starts. No one waits up for me. I remember what he said. I hear it in the hush, not with my ears, but somewhere quieter. No need to answer tonight. Lamps flicker and go out, sandals come off and rest at doorways. There is nothing now but the walk home and the promise that even in silence, even in emptiness, God is close as breath. I walk on, slow and safe, and let the cool air stay a while. I asked for nothing and still feel full. The night sat close and calm. Nicodemus stepped into the alley, the stone underfoot cool and smooth with sleep. He breathed slow and steady. The lamp in his hand made a small circle on the ground, a little boat of gold floating quietly on the sea of darkness. Each step was soft, less a sound and more a whisper to the street. Home was somewhere ahead, but there was no hurry tonight. He walked the long way, letting the empty lane stretch out before him. The houses were silent, windows closed tight against the breath of night. Cloth hung still on lines, not moving at all. A cat watched from a doorstep, not blinking, not afraid. Just another soul letting the darkness slow its heart. He held his lamp closed the way someone might hold a prayer. He did not think of what was said or what was not said. He just felt the night leaning in, gentle and wide. The city seemed to breathe with him as he moved. Each inhale, filled with the cool scent of stone and dust, each exhale, quieter than the last. Alleys twisted and narrowed. Nicodemus did not wonder if he'd lose his way, his feet remembered. They took him where he needed to go, as they always had. The world was heavy with stillness. Lamps at distant corners winked and faded. Shadows grew deeper but not frightening, just more room for rest. He passed a well where water sometimes spilled in the afternoon. Now only smooth stone, pale in lamp glow. He let his hand brush the rim, a circle, whole and cold. Water hidden, waiting. He thought perhaps it dreamed. A gate stood ahead, wider than he remembered, swinging quietly on its hinge. He did not need to touch it. It welcomed him by opening on its own, with a sigh that felt like the end of a long day. He crossed the threshold. Behind him, the city tucked itself deeper into sleep. No doors slammed. No dogs barked. Only the soft, steady pad of sandals moving along old earth. Let the walk keep stretching. With every breath in and every breath out, home was close. He could smell cooking fires now gone to embers, hear the last hush of a broom sweeping dust from a stone step. Somewhere, a neighbor turned in bed. Quiet voices behind walls, too far to catch words, just a murmur. Life winding down with him. He slowed his pace. No one called his name. No one waited at the door. The silence welcomed him just the same. He did not look back. The night was enough, wide, silent, holy in its boredom. Each footstep sounded like a closing eye. His heart, no longer full of questions, just drifted along in the safety of the dark. He was returning not from a miracle but from an ordinary night. The air was cool on his face. He let it in. He let the quiet fill his bones. He felt the place where conversation faded into peace, where words stopped needing to find their end. Let this silence become your breath. Let the long walk soften your thoughts. Let the night carry you gently toward rest. Even after he stepped inside, Nicodemus found himself pausing. listening one more time to the hush that followed him home. All was well. He asked for nothing and still felt full. The house is quiet now. I leave my sandals by the door, stepping barefoot onto the cool, swept floor. The last voices in the street have drifted home. My hands move slowly, folding the spare cloth at the end of my bed. There's no need to hurry. Another slow breath in and out. The lamp on the table glows, just enough to show me where my night covering waits, neatly folded, the way a mother might tuck it. The air is soft, the window open. I let it in. It smells like earth cooling after a long day, like distant rain and quiet stones. One by one, I smooth out the wrinkles in the blanket. The gentle scrape of pottery echoes back. The water jar for the morning filled and resting by the wall. I think of nothing. The heavy voice from earlier, questions asked in shadows, now stilled. No one rushes here in the dark. Light shivers across the ceiling. Somewhere, a neighbor yawns. A street dog curls up beneath a wooden bench. I lower the flame in the lamp, turning the wick with careful fingers, slow enough not to miss anything. The soft glow shrinks, then softens, and the whole world feels smaller. My eyes grow heavier. The lamp sighs out. Stars gather where the roof opens to the sky, hundreds crowding close without making a sound. I listen for something, but the house is smaller than silence tonight. I lay myself down. The blanket's weight is just enough. My hands rest at my chest, worn knuckles against rough linen. My body is heavy. All I can hear is my own breathing, the rise and fall like slow waves over sand. I close my eyes, remember a voice in another room. The night Jesus spoke, not loud, not urgent, just right. Questions folding into answers and answers into rest. He asked for nothing and still felt full. The night holds me, so plain and quiet like a field waiting for sun. I whisper a prayer, not for the crowds or the temple tonight, only for the quiet to last. Stillness holds me, I am not forgotten. God counts my breaths. My name is safe here. Peace is a blanket, the dark is not alone. Holy One, hold me as I sleep. Amen, 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 amen. The last word feels heavy in the room. I let the quiet answer me back. The stars do not leave. My heart slows. The night waits beside me, full of everything I cannot see but am still held by. Amen, amen, amen.